Admiral Tejo Park stood before the massive viewing screen, his tall figure casting a long shadow across the command deck. The Viridian warship hummed with quiet efficiency as stars streaked past. His purple skin gleamed under the soft lights while his four-fingered hands clasped behind his back. "Another system to bring into our empire," he said. His voice was low but carried across the silent bridge. No one spoke when the admiral was thinking. The Viridian Empire had conquered 17 star systems already. Each conquest followed the same pattern: arrive with overwhelming force, demand surrender, and accept nothing less than total submission. Those who resisted were crushed quickly. The Viridians had not lost a war in 300 years. "Admiral, our scouts have returned from the third planet," said Officer Sun Wu, approaching with a data tablet. "This species calls themselves humans. They have settled 3 worlds in this system." Tejo took the tablet, his eyes narrowing as he studied the information. Primitive technology. Limited defensive capabilities. A smile spread across his face, revealing sharp teeth. "Send the diplomatic vessel." Standard first contact procedures. The diplomatic vessel was really just the first phase of invasion. It would deliver the terms of surrender before the main fleet arrived. Most species accepted immediately when faced with Viridian might. 3 days later, Tejo received shocking news. The diplomatic vessel limped back to the fleet with severe damage. Half its crew was dead. "What happened?" he demanded as the ship's captain, Ju Hyun, bowed before him. She looked shaken, her uniform torn and stained with blue blood. "The humans refused our terms, Admiral," she said. "They proposed their own agreement instead, an alliance of equals. When we explained this was not possible, they asked us to leave. When we threatened them..." She paused. "They attacked with weapons we didn't detect in our scans." Tejo slammed his fist on the console. "Impossible. Our scans are perfect. These humans are primitive." "They appear primitive, Admiral, but their technology is unusual. Not like anything we've seen before." Tejo's anger grew. No species had ever rejected Viridian terms. No one had ever damaged a Viridian ship on first contact. "Deploy the 7th Fleet to their colony on Proxima B," he ordered. "A small demonstration of our power should correct their misunderstanding." The 7th Fleet was 50 warships strong, enough firepower to level an entire civilization. Against primitive humans, it would be a quick victory. 5 days later, Tejo stared in disbelief at battle reports from Proxima B. The 7th Fleet had lost 12 ships. 12. And they had barely damaged the human colony. "How?" he demanded, facing his war council. "How did primitive humans destroy 12 of our warships?" Fleet Commander Myon looked uncomfortable. "Their tactics were unexpected, Admiral. They don't fight like any species we've encountered. They use small, fast ships that our targeting systems struggle to track. They hide in asteroid fields and attack from multiple directions at once. And their weapons..." She shook her head. "They can somehow bypass our shields." "Impossible," Tejo repeated, but with less conviction now. "There's more," said Intelligence Officer Jae Hyun. "We intercepted their communications. They're not afraid of us, Admiral. After destroying our ships, their commanders were laughing." The command room fell silent. In the Viridian military, fear was a tool of control. Everyone feared those above them. Every species feared the Viridians. That these humans showed no fear was disturbing. "A statistical anomaly," Tejo finally said, addressing the Imperial Council on the viewscreen. "We will crush them with our full might. I will personally lead the Grand Armada to their home system and erase this insult." The council members nodded in agreement, but Tejo noticed something troubling. For the first time in his long career, he saw doubt in their eyes. Later that night, as Tejo reviewed battle footage from Proxima B, he watched a small human ship dodge concentrated fire from 3 Viridian cruisers. The human vessel spun, rolled, and accelerated in ways that seemed to defy physics. Then it released what looked like simple missiles, only for those missiles to split into dozens of smaller projectiles that overwhelmed Viridian defenses. In his private quarters, Tejo allowed himself to feel something he had never felt before: uncertainty. These humans fought like no enemy the Viridians had ever faced. They were unpredictable, adaptable, and seemingly fearless. No matter, he whispered to himself, straightening his uniform. The Grand Armada will crush them. 177 warships against a primitive species? The outcome is certain. But as he prepared for bed, a strange feeling settled in his stomach. For the first time, Admiral Tejo Park wondered if the Viridian Empire had finally met its match. Captain Jaiwo Kim stared out the viewport at the massive warship docked in Earth's orbital shipyard. The HSS Nemesis gleamed under the station lights, its dark hull absorbing more light than it reflected. Unlike other human vessels with their practical, boxy designs, the Nemesis was sleek and predatory. "I still don't understand why they chose me," Jaiwo said quietly. Admiral Songi handed her a data tablet with the ship's specifications. "Because you're the only one crazy enough to command it," she said with a small smile. "And because you've beaten every tactical simulation we've ever designed." Jaiwo scrolled through the tablet, her eyes widening. The Nemesis wasn't just another warship. It carried technologies that most human scientists still didn't fully understand, some reverse-engineered from ancient ruins found on Mars, others developed in secret labs throughout the solar system. Adaptive shields? Phase shift drive? What's the Prometheus protocol? Jaiwo asked, looking up from the tablet. "That's classified even from me," Admiral Songi admitted. "All I know is that it's our last resort. The engineers who designed it call it a reality distortion field, whatever that means." 3 days later, Jaiwo stood on the bridge of the Nemesis for the first time. The command center was unlike any ship she had served on before. Instead of the usual bright lights and busy screens, the bridge was dimly lit, with holographic displays floating at each station. The crew, hand-picked specialists, watched her with a mixture of curiosity and hope. "Welcome aboard, Captain," said Commander Dae-hyun, the ship's second-in-command. Her voice was formal, but her eyes were warm. The crew was ready for inspection. As Jaiwo walked through her new command, she met each crew member. There was Lieutenant Hyun-woo Lee at Tactical, a young officer whose simulation scores had broken records at the academy. Chief Engineer Min Seo ran the engine room, his hands constantly in motion as he explained the ship's unique propulsion system. Dr. Jiho headed the medical bay, her calm demeanor a stark contrast to the nervous energy that filled the ship. "They're the best we have," Dae explained as they returned to the bridge. "Just like you." Jaiwo had never wanted to be the best. In the Tactical Academy, she had argued against conventional military doctrine. While others focused on fleet formations and overwhelming firepower, she taught unpredictability and adaptation. Her methods were controversial but effective. That night, alone in her captain's quarters, Jaiwo reviewed the mission files. The Viridians had destroyed the 7th Fleet at Proxima B, and intelligence suggested they were now preparing a massive invasion force. All available human ships were assembling at Jupiter to make a stand, but they would need time. A soft chime interrupted her thoughts. "Captain, incoming transmission from Fleet Command," announced the ship's AI. Admiral Songi's face appeared on the screen. She looked tired, the weight of humanity's defense heavy on her shoulders. "Jaiwo, we're activating the Nemesis ahead of schedule," she said without preamble. "Our long-range scouts have detected the Viridian invasion fleet. Over 170 ships, headed straight for Earth." Jaiwo felt her stomach tighten. "The defense fleet isn't ready." "No, it's not. We need 2 more days to assemble our forces." The Admiral paused. "We need you to buy us that time. You want the Nemesis to engage the entire Viridian fleet? Alone?" Jaiwo couldn't keep the disbelief from her voice. "Not engage. Distract. Delay. Use the ship's capabilities to confuse them, make them cautious. The Nemesis was built for this, Jaiwo. One ship that could change the course of a war." The next morning, Jaiwo called the senior officers to the bridge. She explained their mission without sugarcoating the danger. "We're to intercept the Viridian invasion fleet before they reach the inner system," she said. "Our goal is to delay them for 48 hours while our main fleet assembles." "Against their entire armada?" Hyunwoo asked, his voice cracking slightly. "Yes," Jaiwoo said simply. "We'll use the asteroid belt for cover and the ship's unique capabilities to create confusion. We don't need to win, we just need to make them hesitate." As the officers dispersed to prepare their departments, Commander Dahi remained behind. "The crew is talking about the ship," she said quietly. "There are rumors about what it can do." "Let them talk," Jaiwoo replied. "Fear of the unknown works both ways. Soon the Viridians will be hearing rumors about us too." 6 hours later, the Nemesis slipped away from Earth's orbit, its revolutionary engines leaving no trail to follow. As they accelerated toward the outer system, Jaiwoo studied the tactical display showing the approaching Viridian fleet. "They've never faced anything like us before," she said softly. "And after today, they'll never forget the name Nemesis." The bridge crew exchanged glances. They were heading toward an enemy that had never known defeat, in a ship unlike any other, led by a captain with unconventional methods. It was either humanity's best hope or its most spectacular final stand. Supreme Commander Miho Kong stood tall on the command deck of the Viridian flagship, Eternal Dominance. His blue skin caught the light of nearby stars as he studied the holographic display showing his invasion fleet. 177 warships moved in perfect formation toward the human home system. "Supreme Commander, we will reach the human asteroid belt in 20 minutes, reported Fleet Captain Jin-Soo, bowing slightly. Miho nodded with satisfaction. After the unexpected resistance at Proxima B, he had taken personal command of this mission. The Viridian Empire did not tolerate failure, and he intended to crush these humans quickly. "Any sign of their defense fleet?" he asked. "Nothing substantial, Supreme Commander. Our long-range scanners detect scattered vessels near their inner planets, but they appear disorganized. There is, however, one ship that has separated from the others." "Show me," Miho ordered. The holographic display zoomed in on a single vessel moving toward them from behind the fourth planet. It was unlike other human ships they had encountered, darker, sleeker, with a design that seemed almost predatory. "They send one ship against our armada?" Miho laughed, his sharp teeth gleaming. "Either humans are suicidal or truly stupid." The bridge officers joined in his laughter, but it faded quickly when their sensor officer called out in surprise. "Supreme Commander! The human vessel has accelerated too, this can't be right." "What is it?" Miho snapped. "It's moving at speeds that should be impossible. The G-forces would kill any organic crew." Before Miho could respond, the human ship vanished from their sensors. A moment later, alarms blared as it reappeared directly above the asteroid belt. "All ships, defensive positions," Miho ordered. "Find that vessel." The human ship, they were now receiving its identification as HSS Nemesis, weaved through the asteroid belt with impossible precision. Massive space rocks that should have been obstacles became cover as the ship danced between them. "Target that ship," Miho commanded. Full weapons barrage. 3 Viridian cruisers moved forward, their weapons charging. They fired simultaneously, filling the space where the Nemesis had been with destructive energy. But when the light faded, there was nothing there. "Where did it?" began Captain Jin-Soo. His question was answered by a brilliant flash of light behind their defensive line. 3 Viridian ships erupted into explosions almost simultaneously. The Nemesis had somehow appeared behind them and fired weapons that had passed through their shields as if they didn't exist. "Impossible," Miho hissed. "Nothing can penetrate Viridian shields." But the evidence was floating before him as debris. The Nemesis vanished again, using some technology that their sensors couldn't track. "All ships, tighten formation," Miho ordered. "Prepare for." The Nemesis appeared in the middle of their fleet, launched what looked like simple projectiles in all directions, then vanished again. The projectiles split into dozens of smaller devices that attached themselves to Viridian hulls. "They're not exploding," reported the weapons officer. They're disrupting our systems. Ships are reporting shield failures, weapon malfunctions. 5 more Viridian warships exploded as the Nemesis reappeared and fired precision shots at their now unshielded hulls. It's toying with us, Miho realized with growing horror. He had never seen such tactics: appearing, striking, disappearing. The human ship wasn't following any known combat doctrine. 2 hours into the battle, the Viridian fleet had lost 22 ships. The Nemesis would appear, strike with surgical precision, then vanish before they could respond effectively. Each time it reappeared, it seemed to be testing different weapons, different approaches. "It's learning," Miho said quietly to Captain Jin-Soo. "It's studying our responses." "Supreme Commander, perhaps we should push forward," Jin-Soo suggested. "Ignore this single ship and proceed to the human homeworld." Miho considered this. "Deploy Scout Group 5. Have them push ahead toward the inner system." 10 Viridian ships broke from the main formation, accelerating toward the inner planets. For several minutes, it seemed the Nemesis had let them go. Then something unprecedented happened. The human ship appeared directly in their path, and for a brief moment, it seemed to shimmer and distort. The space around it rippled like water, and a brilliant golden light expanded outward in a perfect sphere. The 10 Viridian ships caught in this strange field slowed to a complete stop, frozen in space as if time itself had ceased to flow for them. "What did they just do?" whispered Jin-Soo. Miho had no answer. In 300 years of Viridian military history, no one had ever seen such a weapon. One by one, the frozen ships began to drift, their lights dark, their systems completely dead. On the bridge of the Nemesis, Captain Jaiwo Kim exhaled slowly. "Prometheus protocol test successful," she reported calmly. "Let's see how they respond to that." As the Nemesis vanished once more into the asteroid field, Supreme Commander Miho stared at the dead ships floating in space. For the first time in his military career, he felt something unfamiliar. 6 hours into the battle, Supreme Commander Miho Kang's perfect blue skin had darkened to a deep navy with stress. The command deck of the Eternal Dominance was no longer calm and orderly. Officers rushed between stations, shouting reports as the Viridian fleet continued to lose ships. 37 vessels lost, Supreme Commander, Fleet Captain Jin-Soo reported, his voice tight with disbelief. "The human vessel continues to evade our targeting systems." Miho slammed his four-fingered hand against the tactical display. The holographic image of the battlefield showed his once perfect formation now scattered and disorganized. The human ship, this HSS Nemesis, had systematically torn apart his carefully planned attack. "Where are they now?" he demanded. "Unknown, Supreme Commander." "They disappeared again after destroying the Relentless." Miho had never faced such a situation. The Viridian military had conquered 17 star systems through overwhelming force and superior technology. Their combat doctrine was based on the assumption that more ships always meant victory. But this single human vessel had changed everything. "It makes no sense," he muttered. "One ship cannot defeat an armada." "Sir," said Sensor Officer Yona hesitantly, "I've been analyzing their attack patterns. There's something unusual about this vessel." "Explain," Miho ordered. "The human ship doesn't move like anything we've encountered. It can accelerate instantly without building momentum. Sometimes it seems to phase through solid matter. And that golden field weapon, it somehow suspended our ships in time." "Impossible technology," Miho said, but with less conviction than before. Another alarm blared. The Nemesis had reappeared, this time near their supply ships. "All defensive units, concentrate fire," Miho shouted. 20 Viridian warships turned their weapons toward the human vessel. The space around the Nemesis lit up with energy weapons, but the ship moved with impossible speed, weaving between the beams as if they were standing still. How can they react so quickly? Jin-Soo wondered aloud. On the bridge of the Nemesis, Captain Jaiwo Kim sat calmly in her command chair. The ship shuddered as a Viridian energy beam grazed their shields. "Shield status?" she asked. "Adaptive shields at 62%, replied Lieutenant Hyunwoo, his fingers dancing across the tactical console. "They're trying to predict our movements now."
Jaiwoo nodded. They're learning.
Time to change tactics. Commander Daehee, prepare for close quarters engagement. Commander Daehee looked up from her station. Captain, that would put us within range of their short-range weapons. Exactly, Jaiwoo replied with a small smile. They won't expect us to move closer. The Nemesis suddenly accelerated directly toward the center of the Viridian fleet. On the Eternal Dominance, Supreme Commander Miho watched in shock.
They're charging us. All ships, fire at will. But the Nemesis was too fast, too unpredictable.
It slipped between Viridian vessels, so close that larger weapons couldn't target it without risking friendly fire.
As it passed each ship, it fired precision shots at engines, weapons systems, and command centers.
This is madness, Jin-Soo whispered.
No commander would risk their ship like this. Miho realized something that chilled him to his core. They're not fighting according to any tactical doctrine. They're improvising.
In Viridian military culture, improvisation was discouraged. Officers followed established procedures that had been proven effective over centuries. But these humans seemed to be making decisions moment by moment, adapting to each new situation. Supreme Commander, called Intelligence Officer Yunha, we've intercepted communications from the human ship. They're discussing our tactics. They're analyzing our responses in real time.
Miho moved to her station. What are they saying?
Their captain, they call her Jaiwoo, is telling her crew to identify patterns in our defense.
She's.
Yunha paused, surprised. She's asking junior officers for tactical suggestions. This was unheard of in Viridian military culture.
Junior officers did not make suggestions to commanders. Orders flowed down, not up. Another explosion rocked the flagship as the Nemesis destroyed a Viridian cruiser that had ventured too close.
Status report.
Miho demanded.
42 ships lost, reported Jin-Soo.
Another 15 heavily damaged. We've destroyed nothing of the human vessel. Where are our reinforcements from the inner fleets?
Still 6 hours away, Supreme Commander. Miho faced a decision that no Viridian commander had made in 300 years. Their military doctrine had no protocol for retreat, it had never been necessary. But as he watched the Nemesis tear through another formation of his ships, he knew this battle could not be won today.
Send new orders, he said quietly.
All ships to regroup at the edge of the system.
Jin-Soo looked shocked. Supreme Commander, that would be a retreat. It would be a strategic regrouping, Miho corrected, though they both knew what it really meant. As the orders went out, Miho stared at the holographic image of the Nemesis. One human ship had accomplished what 17 alien civilizations had failed to do, forced the Viridian Empire to reconsider its approach to war. On the Nemesis, Captain Jaiwoo watched the Viridian fleet begin to pull back. They're retreating, she announced to her crew, surprise evident in her voice.
For the first time in 6 hours, the bridge of the Nemesis fell completely silent. The Grand Council chamber of the Viridian Empire had never felt so tense.
12 admirals sat in a semicircle, their blue skin shimmering under the ceremonial lights.
They had gathered for an emergency session, the first in 200 years. Supreme Commander Miho Kong stood before them, back straight despite the weight of what he had come to report. The loss of 57 ships.
A retreat order. The first military defeat in Viridian history. You retreated from a single human vessel?
Elder Admiral Suho Choi asked, his voice cutting through the silence.
His age spots showed dark purple against his blue skin.
In 300 years, no Viridian commander has ever retreated. I made a tactical decision to preserve the fleet, Miho replied calmly. The human ship, the HSS Nemesis, possessed technologies we cannot explain. It moved in ways that defied our understanding of physics. It had weapons that bypassed our strongest shields. The council members exchanged glances. In Viridian society, failure meant disgrace.
Yet here stood their supreme commander, admitting defeat. Show us, ordered Admiral Suho. Miho activated the holographic projector at the center of the room.
The space filled with images of the battle, the nemesis appearing and disappearing, moving with impossible speed, deploying weapons that seemed to bend reality itself. Their most devastating weapon created some kind of temporal distortion field, Miho explained as the recording showed 10 Viridian ships frozen in space. Our scientists still cannot explain how it works. For the first time, the council chamber was completely silent. Even the most battle-hardened admirals watched with wide eyes. If they have more ships like this nemesis, Miho continued, direct conflict would be inadvisable.
I recommend immediate diplomatic initiatives.
The word diplomatic hung in the air. The Viridian Empire had never negotiated with species they considered inferior.
They conquered. They ruled. That was their way.
Perhaps, said Admiral Youngmi, the youngest council member, we should reconsider our approach to these humans. 6 months later, Captain Jaiwo Kim walked through the grand halls of the Galactic Conclave. The massive space station had been constructed in neutral territory between human and Viridian space. Representatives from 17 species gathered there, many of them former subjects of the Viridian Empire who now sought alliances with humanity.
Jaiwa's dress uniform felt stiff and formal after months in her captain's attire aboard the Nemesis.
The medals on her chest felt heavy awards for a battle she had never expected to win. Captain Kim called a familiar voice. She turned to see Admiral Songi approaching with a smile. The negotiations are about to begin. As the commander of the Nemesis, your presence is requested.
I'm not a diplomat, Jaiwo reminded her.
No, Songi agreed.
You're a symbol.
The Nemesis changed everything. In the Great Chamber, representatives from all 17 species sat at a circular table.
There were no positions of power, everyone was equal here.
It was a concept that clearly made the Viridian delegates uncomfortable. As Jaiwo took her seat, she found herself facing Admiral Taeho Park, the commander who had ordered the first attack on human colonies. He looked different now, less certain than in the recordings she had studied. Captain Kim, he said, inclining his head slightly.
Your reputation precedes you.
As does yours, Admiral, she replied evenly. Your ship, Taeho said quietly as the other delegates prepared their notes.
There are rumors about its capabilities. Jaiwo smiled.
I find that rumors often serve better than confirmations, Admiral. The formal negotiations began, but Jaiwo found her attention drifting to the viewport that showed the stars beyond. Somewhere out there, the Nemesis waited in dock, its technologies being studied and replicated.
Soon, humanity would have a fleet of ships with similar capabilities.
But she knew the Nemesis would always be special, the ship that had changed the balance of power in the galaxy with a single battle. After the day's negotiations ended, Jaiwo stood alone at the viewport, looking out at the stars. She sensed someone approach and turned to find a small alien with green-tinted skin, a representative from one of the worlds formerly under Viridian control. Captain Kim, the alien said in carefully practiced human language.
My people wish to express our gratitude.
For centuries, the Viridians ruled our world.
We thought no one could stand against them.
The alien's large eyes blinked rapidly. Then came the stories of one human ship that made the mighty Viridian fleet retreat. Jaiwo nodded, unsure how to respond to such gratitude for what had essentially been a military action.
Is it true? The alien asked. Did your ship really make space itself bend? Jaiwo smiled. Let's just say the Nemesis had a few surprises.
As she walked back to her quarters, messages flowed in from across human space.
Children were naming their toys Nemesis. Schools were teaching the battle tactics she had employed.
Artists were creating images of the sleek warship moving among the stars. The Nemesis had become more than a ship. It was humanity's statement to the galaxy that they would not be conquered, would not be ruled. That sometimes, one ship could change everything. And throughout 17 star systems, military commanders repeated a new saying to their troops, remember what happened when alien generals issued a retreat order, a human warship was approaching.